Hello, we're looking at Saxon Math, Course 1. This is Lesson 101, Ratio Problems Involving Totals. In some ratio problems, a total is needed in order to solve the problem. Like make a table with the information in the problem, include a row in the table for the total, and write a proportion. Then you use the row with what you want to find. Use the row that is complete. So for example, if you have the ratio of boys to girls in a class was 5-4. If there were 27 students in the class, how many girls were there? So in order to start with a table, let's just jump right into it. So here it is. Here's what the table would look like. You have your ratio, you have your actual count, and you can see that there are boys, girls, and a total number there. So if the ratio of boys to girls in a class is 5-4, so 5-4, and it has to be in this order, boys to girls. So if we say this one is boys and this one is girls, you can see it's 5-4. It's not going to be 4-5. It's got to be boys with 5, girls with 4. If there are a total of 27 actual students in the class, that's the actual count. So you see you've got an actual count here. You have the ratio. This is considered a ratio box. And in a ratio, you've got a proportion, which is a statement that shows two ratios that are equal to each other. So what we end up having here is like this. 5-4 is like a ratio, 5-4, or like a fraction, is equal to this actual count of an unknown number of boys and an unknown number of girls. So how many girls are there if we don't know how many actual boys and girls there are, but we know that there is a ratio of 5-4. In this case, we use the row that we want to complete and the row that's already complete. You can see that in this case, you've got 4 and 9. So you could actually look at it like this too. 4/9 is the same as G over 27. So that's the one we want to use. We want to use this set right here in order to complete the missing information. So in this case, I see that 4/9 equals G over 27. And now what do? Well, if you remember, we've done in the past cross multiplication. You can cross multiply these to find out what those equal. So in this case, you have 9 times G equals 4 times 27. All right, and then you divide it by 9. So if I'm going to divide this by 9, I also divide this by 9. And what I'm left with in this case, then, I can see that 27 and 9 are compatible numbers. These cancel out. This turns into 3. This turns into 1. Now all I'm left with is up here. That cancels it out. So G equals 4 times 3 divided by 1. So that means G equals 12. So that means there's 12 girls. Now that I know that there are 12 girls, and I know that the class had 27 total students, and I know that there's 12 girls, now I know how many boys there are. I can just subtract those. So that means that equals 15 boys. So it says how many girls were there? There's 12 girls is the answer that it's asking. But we were also able to find out how many boys there were. We could have just ended it with the number 12, but we can also go further, take it further. Let's try this one. If the ratio of football players to band members on the football field was 2-5, altogether there were 175 football players and band members on the football field. How many football players were on the field? So here's your ratio box. You have your ratio and your actual count. We know that there was a ratio of 2-5 for football players to band members. So that ratio is 2-5. We don't know how many football players are actually on the field. We don't know how many band members are actually on the field. We do know that if we added these two together, if we add football players plus the band members, it equals 175 people between the two. It's asking us how many football players are there. So in this case, I want to use this box because that's got two values that we're aware of, and I want to use this box. And I want to combine those two together to make a ratio. So I'm going to have this ratio in the end over here. I'm going to have this 2 is to 7 as F is to 175. Because it's just like this. 2 is to 7 as F is to 175. How do we know this was 7? Well, 2 plus 5 equals 7. So now that I've got those elements, though, I've got this number of football players. This is the ratio. This is the reduced ratio of football players. This is the total number when you add those two ratios together. This is the actual count that were on the field. So remember, it's not 2 football players that are on the field. Because look at this, there's 175 people on the field altogether. And it's for every 2 football players, there's 5 band members. So that means there's 2.5 times more band members than there are football players on the field. How can we figure it out using this equation? Cross multiply again. 7 times F equals 2 times 175. Let's do that. So 7F equals 2 times 175. And then I'm going to divide this by 7. And if I do this on this side of the equation, remember I have to do it over here on this side. So I have to do what's fair in this case since they're equal. If I don't do that to this side, then it's no longer equal. I don't see a lot of compatible numbers here, actually. This is going to be just a little bit more challenging. I don't see that this is compatible because, this just doesn't divide very evenly at this point. It might, but I don't see it right off the bat. So I can take 2 times 175 divided by 7 to find out what my final answer is going to be. So all I need to do then is complete that work. And if I do 175, let me do that down here. 175, I'm going to multiply that times 2. I get 10. This is 14. This is 15. Carry that. That looks like it'll be, in this case, 350. And then I have to divide that by 2. That's something I'm pretty, that looks more compatible, or sorry, divided by 7. So, and that's very compatible. 350 divided by 7, because I know what 35 divided by 7 is. I know that 35 divided by 7 is 5. And then I just have to remember there's a 0 on the end of that. So that means this 50 represents F. F equals 50. What did F stand for? The number of football players. So there's 50 football players on the field. Okay. If it went further, if it asked us how many band members, all you need to do if it asks you that information as well is take that 175, subtract from the number of football players there are, and you now know how many band members there are. So 125 band members. The two to combine make the total 175 that we have there. Let's try this one. All right. Sparrows and crows perched on the wire in the ratio of 5 to 3. If the total number of sparrows and crows on the wire was 72, how many were crows? So what's the label going to be for this value right here? This number 5. What am I going to write in this space? What would this represent? If you wrote sparrows, you're correct. What about this then? And then in this case, it's going to be crows. And then what's this represent here? This is the total line. So what's this total going to be, the ratio total? 8. And in this case, we don't know how many sparrows and we don't know how many crows. So I'm just going to use S for sparrows and C for crows. So now we're looking for how many were crows. So that means I want to use this line, this line right here from 3 is 3 and C. And I need to use the values that I already know, these right here, to create that. So that means my values are 3 is to 8 as C is to 72. And then I just need to cross multiply, just like we did before. So this would be 8C. So 8C equals 3 times 72. And I'm not going to multiply that out yet just because I'll see what happens here. If I divide this by 8, that turns into 1 times C. And then I have to also divide this side by 8 because I need to be fair because it says it's equal. If I don't do the same thing as I did here, divide by 8, it's no longer equal. But as long as I do both on both sides, the exact same operation, they remain equal. And why did I not multiply these before? Because look at what happens. These numbers are actually really compatible. 72 divided by 8, that's just something you should know. 72 divided by 8 is 9. 8 divided by 8 is 1. So all you're left with is this. C equals 3 times 9, all divided by 1. So that means the number of crows we have here is going to be 27 crows. That also tells us how many sparrows there are in a roundabout way. If we want to go ahead and complete that, we can do 72 minus the 27 to find out how many sparrows there were. And this would be 12, that'd be 5. So in this case, there'd be 45 sparrows. And just to double check, 45 plus 27 should be 72. And that'd be 60 plus 72, yes. So in the answer, the final answer, this question was just asking how many crows there are. So I see that there are 27 crows on the line in actual numbers of counts. So that's 27. So for every 5, if you looked at it like this, 5 to 3 is the exact same ratio as 45 to 27. These are equal to each other. 45 sparrows to 27 crows. Well, that's the same as if I was to divide by 9, I would get 5. 27 divided by 9 is 3. Let's try this one. Raisins and nuts were mixed by weight in a ratio of 2 to 3. So it has to be in this order, raisins and nuts. And it has to be in a ratio of 2 to 3. So what would this label be right here for the 2? If you put raisins, you're correct. And that leaves this one being nuts for the 3. What do these add up to? You can see it's 5. So now I've got an unknown number of raisins and an unknown number of nuts. So that the actual count, but they all add up to 60 ounces. So how many ounces of raisins were used? So we want to use this for finding out raisins. We need to use this one, and we need to use this one in order to find that missing information. If we use this one and this one, it won't work because you need to have 3 pieces to find the 4th. Okay, so this equation that occurs from this is 2 is to 5 as R is to 60 ounces. Okay, so now I just do the cross multiplying like we've done before. And I'm going to end up with this equation that I'm going to use. I'm going to start with 5 times R. equals 2 times 60 ounces. And then I'm going to divide by 5. Okay, cancels that out. I'm going to divide this side by 5 because it's got to be equal and fair. So now I have R is the same. Look at what's compatible here. This 60 divided by 5. I actually know that by heart from my memory, but if you don't, you just have to do it. 60 divided by 5. 5 will go into 6 one time. 5 times 1 is 5. Subtract that, that'd be 1. Bring this down, this would be 10. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and 2 times 5 is 10. So you see that there's nothing left over. So that means this is compatible. This turns into 12. This turns into 1. Now all that's left is R equals 2 times 12 ounces divided by 1. And I hope, maybe you don't know, but hopefully you know what 2 times 12 is. 2 times 12. That'll tell you that this R equals 24, and you can see the only label remaining is ounces. So in that case, the answer is there's 24 ounces of raisins. That would be the answer to the question that's being asked. If it went further and said how many ounces of nuts are there, I can do that. I just need to take 60 ounces and I have to subtract 24 ounces. Once I complete that, then I know how many of the remaining, the other things are. So I've got, in this case, this would be 5, this would turn into 10, and this would be 6, this would be 3, it'd be 36 ounces. So in this case, it'd be 36 ounces of nuts, 24 ounces of raisins. Combine the two together, it should end up being 60 ounces. 20 plus 30 is 50, 10 there, 50 plus 10 is 60. All right, let's try this last one here before your quiz. The ratio of boys to girls in the class was 3 to 2. So boys to girls was 3 to 2. If there were 30 students in the class, how many girls were there? There's nothing here. What are we going to do? Well, in this case, I see my ratios given, and I'm going to just start with the boys to girls. It has to be in that order. Boys to girls. All right. And I see that it has to be 3 to 2. So it has to be 3 to 2. I know what 3 plus 2 is. That's 5. Remember, this is the total. So I have to add up those. And then it says there were 30 students. Is that a ratio number or an actual count? Is that boys, girls, or a total? So that would be 30 students here would go into the actual count for the class. We don't know how many boys or girls there are, but all I need to use, as you can see here, is these boxes right here. I want to use these to make my ratio to complete the final answer. In this case, it would be 2 is to 5 is the same as G is to 30. And then I'm going to cross multiply. I end up with 5G equals 2 times 30. Now, if I divide by 5 on this side, I have to divide by 5 over here. That cancels this out. This turns into 6 because I know what 30 divided by 5 is 6. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So now all I'm left with is 2 times 6 for the G. So that means that's the number of girls. It's 12 girls. 12 girls. This feels like one we've done before. Did we accidentally do this at the beginning of the lesson? Let me just go back. Yes, we did. Well, it wasn't. It was slightly different though, wasn't it? The answer was 12 girls, but it was 5 to 4, 27 students in the class. So look at the difference. So this one is 30 students in the class and the ratio is 3 to 2. So it's slightly different ratios, different total number of students. So you can see it ended up being the same answer, and that just ended up, that was luck. That's not always going to happen like that. So I also want to show you just real quick before you do your quiz here. What happens if you do, let me just wipe this away. What if you make this change? What if we did, um, what if we did this? So you see here we have boys and then girls 3 to 2. What if we actually went like this? What if it was girls first? Because ladies first, right? And then boys. What happens there if I mislabel those? Is that a problem actually? If I've got that, let's say I did it that way. Well, it's not a problem if I make sure I put it in this order. It has to be boys to girls like this, and then this 3, and then there's a 2. So let me just rewrite the 2 here. So it has to be in this order. It has to be in those orders. So this is girls, this is the boys. Boys, girls. So if the girls has to be 2, then I need to make sure it says 2. And in the boys, it has to be 3. And the total is still 5. And the actual count is still 30. See that? It still says 30. So what happens? And if we're trying to find the number of girls, I need to use this piece of information. 2 is to 5 as G is to 30. Here's what my equation is going to look like. 2 is to 5 as G is to 30. What's the difference? All we did was flip these two around. This was 5 is to 2 as 30 is to G, right? Or it was G is to 30. So it was just flipped around. But if we complete the cross multiplication of these, you still end up with the same answer. You should end up with 5G equals 2 times 30. In this case, divide by that, divide by this. You still end up with 6 over 1 there, and it's still 12. So the girls, you still get the correct answer, 12 girls. So don't be too upset about it. You just have to make sure that this matches up with this. Those two, the relationship of those numbers is incredibly important. Boys to girls, 3 to 2. So boys is 3, girls is 2. Those have to correlate. All right. Thanks for watching today. Make sure you guys do all 5 of these problems, answer it by midnight tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.